To Griselda Lewis now for more on the sentence hearing of Oscar Pistorius. Griselda Lewis outside the North Gauteng High Court in Pretoria. What a day yesterday was. I mean, I had tears in my eyes watching it at home. I can imagine what the atmosphere was like in the courtroom. In the report you were saying many brought to tears.
Oh, absolutely, Leanne. We saw many in the gallery break down in tears while Reeva Steenkamp was giving that very emotional testimony in aggravation of sentence. We saw how he went into grave detail about how his family had suffered emotionally and even financially, indicating as well at some point, despite the grief of his daughter, they had to deal with more grief and more sadness. At some point, they'd even lost their home. You know that Reeva Steenkamp had moved to Johannesburg and had been quite a great support, financial support for their family. So things really started to fall apart. They'd lost their daughter. Again, they were losing their home. And, you know, quite an emotional plea also that we saw coming from Reeva Steenkamp there when he told this court, made a plea to this court, for this court to release the images of the graphic images of that scene at the former home of Oscar Pistorius, and saying basically the world needs to see what happened to his daughter, and perhaps that would serve as a deterrent for future similar incidents, whether it's in South Africa or around the world. And really saying that, Reeva Steenkamp, he continues to think about her, he and his wife, despite the fact that, we've seen throughout the trial as well, his wife, June Steenkamp, many have described her as stone-faced. You hardly see any emotion coming from her. But on the stand there, he said that despite everyone thinking that June Steenkamp was stone-faced, he was the one that had to deal with his wife in the early hours of the morning, where she would cry and almost talk to Reeva Steenkamp as if she was there. So really painting a picture of a family that was absolutely distraught. And, years after the killing of the daughter, he went on to say, people usually say after several years it does become better, but says it's never gotten better for him and his family. And, went into grave detail about how he has suffered, his health has suffered. You heard him there, you could see the expression on his face, and he's moved his hand saying that his diabetes needle he would take and basically stab into his stomach and to parts of his hand just to numb the pain. And even in doing so, he says, he keeps thinking and visualizing what his daughter went through on that tragic morning in 2013. So really harrowing a testimony, and that's exactly what the state, we were expecting it to do, is to really paint a picture of what impact Reeva Steenkamp's death has had on this family. We're also expecting today another emotional testimony, as indicated by the state. We do have slight confirmation at this stage as to who that will be. I understand we don't have much time to speak to you, Leanne, but perhaps in the next crossing we'll be able to delve into a bit more detail about who that next witness by the state is expected to be.
Well, I'm going to ask you, because I think you've got a lot of people's interests piqued there, because this is expected to be a very emotional witness that's going to be taken to the stand. Any mutterings as to who it possibly could be?
Great speculation at this point, Leanne. We do think perhaps that this might be Reeva Steenkamp's Joburg family. You'd remember when Reeva Steenkamp moved from Port Elizabeth for greener pastures in Johannesburg to pursue modelling and, of course, other career opportunities. She had stayed with the Myers family, and you'd recall she befriended the celebrity makeup artist Gina Myers. She subsequently moved into their home. They were considered as her Joburg family, and Gina Myers was one of the people who we understand was the person who dressed Reeva Steenkamp up for her first date with Oscar Pistorius. So we're speculating at this point as to who the state will bring. Somebody would be able to give testimony about what the relationship was between Oscar Pistorius and Reeva Steenkamp. Of course, you heard yesterday that Reeva Steenkamp's parents had not yet met Oscar Pistorius. The father said, well, he thought perhaps Reeva Steenkamp believed it was too early for her to introduce Oscar Pistorius to the family. But great speculation at this point. But what I definitely do know is that the Myers family will be in court this morning. So that's where the speculation is coming from. I do have confirmation that Gina Myers will be at this court. So I guess everybody is really looking at that direction, given the fact that the state had indicated the next witness that they're going to call is very emotional. So from the Myers family at this stage, either Gina Myers or perhaps one of the other Myers family members, because you'll also recall, just before I wrap up there, Leanne, is that the very first people to identify Reeva Steenkamp's body at the mortuary was Gina Myers' brother and father. So I think certainly that's the direction that the state would want to go in at this point. As you can see, their entire pre-sentencing arguments is based on exactly what impact Reeva Steenkamp's death has had on immediate friends and family. So certainly the friends aspect would come into the family that was considered as Reeva Steenkamp's Joburg family.
All right, Griselda Lewis, we need to leave it there. Thank you very much for giving us more insights into the Oscar Pistorius sentence hearing at the North Gauteng High Court in Pretoria. And today, Judge Masipa wants everything wrapped up so that she can now start looking at the sentence.